Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you a response video to Vince Ventrello's topic of the week, which is how did you get into Warhammer? So I've mentioned this a few times in a variety of my videos. I had played back when undead were actually first undead, before they got broken out into vampire counts, before the Tomb Kings came to be. The actual first box set, but I had been playing before this, was the 5th edition set, where the Bretonians were matched up against the Lizardmen. But that I had purchased well after I had already started. What actually happened was I was involved in 40K initially. One of my buddies, who now is actually designing his own game, his own miniature skirmish game. So he kind of coaxed me into playing. It wasn't really too hard, twisting and my arm or anything, but got me into 40K. I went down to a place. I lived in New York at the time, and I went down to a place called Neutral Ground, and we started playing 40K there. I initially started, like I'm sure most people did, with Marines. I fell in love with the theme of the Dark Angels. I liked that they had kind of that army ish olive, brown green color, but I liked a lot of the fluff background, and I painted them up, and I did a miserable job. I had a full army, put on the decals, but I put on way too much paint. I spray painted these things to the point where probably some details didn't even show up. And I went ahead and I put it. They were at least tabletop sufficient, even if though they were kind of hideous to look at if you looked really close to them, like I'm sure a lot of people experience. So I did that, and we had many a battle between his Eldar and my Space Marines, and then we also dove into like Gorka Morka and some Necromunda. He introduced me to Mordheim as well. This gentleman's name is Steve McAndrews, and I'm pretty happy that he did, because he opened my eyes to a number of different games. Also, I can blame or credit him, depending on whether you're asking me or my wife, for actually introducing me to this entire the whole tabletop thing. I had been doing role playing back then. I'd even been doing some LARPing, and uh, the the interest of 40 fantasy came from seeing the models when I was out purchasing products for various games, and just seeing the stuff on the shelf, and then seeing the box sets, and seeing stuff in White Dwarf about it, but there really wasn't a lot of people playing. So I actually ran into people as I was purchasing the you know my very first box set, which was the box of skeletons. I think it was like 20 or 30 skeletons, and I had gotten the undead with that just a really awful um, uh, awful uh, really like 3-color print for with the big white letters undead on the front, armies of the undead. And I ran into a few people in various places around New York, and sometimes we played in Neutral Ground, and sometimes we played at in their basement, and I had a great time, and my armies just expanded from there. So when the 5th edition box released with the new armies, I think the previous box to that, where, if I remember correctly, was the Empire against Orcs, and I just wasn't interested really in the look of the Empire, and I wasn't interested in the Orcs, even though I had gotten some smidge of stuff for Gorka Morka, which was Orcs building up, I guess, Mad Max type vehicles and fighting in a very similar way to, you have Necromunda, where you experience up and you get more, components, and you boost up your vehicles, it was an awesome game. I really loved it. It took some old, World War II tanks and trucks and stuff, and just gorked them out. I mean, it was really cool. You didn't have to you couldn't do it wrong. There's nothing you could put on there that was wrong. Anyway, so we I started playing people, and bought the starter set for the Bretonnians and the Lizardmen and built up those two armies, and then systematically started spreading to just about every army that was out there. Probably had anywhere from maybe 4 to 10,000 points in just about every army that was available at the time. And even the elves. Even though, despite my absolute hatred of elves, I did not have the elves, and I did not have the Skaven either, and I still don't to this point. So I mean, look, with all the love for the Skaven, I just felt that I had to spread my interest elsewhere. Anyway, the interest in the game was fantastic, but it came to a point where I got engaged. I was getting married, and there was a lot of money locked up into this game, and between work and other commitments, I just wasn't playing as much. And it's not that the interest waned; it just was, this. I'd like to put a down payment on a car, and start getting ready to grow up a little. So I got married, and 10 years later. Well, not more than 10 years later, actually. It's more like between 15 and 20 years later. I have a young son who's getting interested in miniature games, and well, he's mostly into video games right now, but he's also interested in miniature games. I got him into things like HeroClix and X-wing from Fantasy Flight games, and other things that he's enjoying, and so he's gotten experience also with this game, because with Warhammer Fantasy specifically, because I decided to get back into it. I mean, I'm married. I have a child who's not a baby anymore. It gets infinitely easier in terms of just day-to-day care when children get a little bit older. They're not little tadpoles where you've got to feed them and change them in the same way as when they're a little bit older and they can actually get themselves dressed, wipe their own butts, and when you put food in front of them, they can eat it themselves. So it tremendously changes, even though there's obviously other challenges for anybody who's a new parent or has had kids will be able to tell you. In any case, I decided to get back into the game a couple years back after well over a decade away. And now, I'm mainly Undead Legions. I had a huge force of dwarves that I was planning to build and convert that I ditched, and I still have remnants of, especially from Mordheim, just because I don't want to lose the ability to have a warband from Mordheim, but and still some scatterings of some characters and units, but most of it I let go because after questions about Ninth came up, I figured I'm not going to start up another army just to wonder what the basing situation is. I can always rebuy it somewhere down the road, so I unloaded that piecemeal, and then I've still got my undead, and my undead is a massive, massive army with just completely converted. Probably about 99% converted, which is absolutely insane. And it's not just vampire counts; it's a coalition between the vampire counts and Tomb Kings, which we know as Undead Legions now, along with Nagash, which was converted up from practically from scratch. I mean, I shouldn't say from scratch, just with bits from lots of different kits, using the core of the Nagash book, the Nagash model. And I just like converting things to befit the flavor that I want, so that it looks like nobody else's army. So this is a work in progress and a lot of love. And anybody who's followed my channel knows that. But I've got pictures here so you could see some of the stuff that I've been working on. And a lot of that, unfortunately, is in a little bit of a holding pattern until we know what's going to happen with Ninth. Not just the basing. From the rumors I read, and you should be able to use, at least for the foreseeable future, your square bases. Leave it to GW to find a way to put a square base in a round hole. But anyway, the idea is that I don't want to finish this army and only to have to either not have the structure for whatever the new rule set is, or I have to change some of the basing. I may or may not have to, but I've moved on to other games temporarily, so that to buy the time, like Bolt Action, Battle Group, Saga, some historical stuff, and obviously I'm just counting the minutes and day and hours and days until ninth comes out and we get any credible information. But once they do, I'll be returning, and I'll start immediately jumping in and finishing up my models. But I'm just putting together some of the conversions that I finished up. Like for instance, I completed the Fel Pegasus units. I think I have 6 of them now, and still 4 on deck, but I might do different things with them, or even just trade them or sell them. But right now I have these 6 that are fantastic and ready to paint, all magnetized and all converted up. So I'm still kind of pushing a couple of these projects together forward. I'm even trying to get some other projects that are at least remedially painted, so that when I do get to the table and start taking bat reps for them, taking pictures for bat reps, that they're actually finished and ready. Like for instance, Vince Ventrilla, he's coming into town in the Northeast to play a number of us from the Northeast area, and I want to at least get a couple of things that are not right now. Don't even have prime on them. At least a couple of colors, so they look a little bit prettier on the table for the bat reps that are going to be coming. So that's we have it. I've had a long tenure, going back to the 80s, and there's been a major gap in between, from when I took a hiatus from the hobby, but I'm back in it, and I'm back in it in full in full force, and just waiting and hoping for what the next edition is going to be, while still getting some games in with the edition as it is now. I am looking forward to many years of playing going forward, even if it's other game systems, but specifically with Warhammer, and passing on the tradition to my son, who loves to play with the models, but is just starting to get interested in the idea of painting it. So now that I'm not such a bad painter, I wouldn't call myself a good painter, but I at least know what it means to not only base, prime it reasonably, how to put basing on, and I also understand how to do washes and highlights. I'm still learning, obviously, but I'm not as terrible as I was back in the 80s, where it was just a thick layer of not even prime, just one coat, a couple of colors to denote some metal or black or off colors for items, but nothing else. I didn't even know what a wash was, and then other than than taking a shower or taking a bath, I didn't have any idea of what any of these paint methods were. I have to say though, if I had all the models I had then now, given the price tag of what models are today for GW, I'd easily be able to buy a car, and a good one. So I kind of lament that even though those models were as hideous as they were, that I don't have them today. But I do love the idea that anything that I'm building now or making is at least a little bit more based on a little bit more competent skill level. So look, it was really entertaining to listen to other people's how I got into the hobby. Stories. I think the most important thing is that however you got into it, and whatever the reasoning is, whether you're into competitive, whether you're into casual play, whether you're into a combination of them, or you just like to paint and collect, that you're part of the hobby, and that you enjoy it, and that you help try to make it grow, whatever the challenges are and frustrations are, based on relations with the company and the customer. I think that we all know that we all love this hobby, and we love a variety of aspects of it, but we have a connection with each other, and others playing other games as well. And as much as we might complain about GW, we still, I'm sure, I can't speak for everybody certainly, but I'm still sure that everybody appreciates that they still exist, and that we still have Warhammer to play. There's plenty of games out there and plenty of things that can pull your attention away from Warhammer, but it seems like the vast majority of us have stuck with Warhammer in some capacity. With whether I don't think anybody's perfectly happy with everything that the game company they play puts out, but as much as there are challenges and criticisms about GW and Warhammer, I think that a lot of that stuff is it really boils down to, you can't please everybody, but you can please all the people that are involved enough, certainly more than enough, that we're all still dedicated in a hobby that isn't cheap and doesn't take a short amount of time to not only get into, but to do well, to learn and to present with a well-painted army well. So it takes a good deal of dedication. So the idea that if you get into it and you stick with it, it is a rewarding one, and I'm very glad that I did, and I'm very glad that I met a lot of you guys, not some in person, but some also online in the community, and I look forward to more of your content. And if you like mine, and you're listening to this, and you just happen upon me, feel free to click like, feel free to subscribe, and hopefully you'll stick with me as well and keep watching the content that I'm looking forward to putting out to entertain you guys. Have a great day, everybody.